Hey guys, today we have our third podcast on In Bed with Kate, and today here with us Kalina. I've met Kalina at the yoga studio Bohemia Yoga in downtown Los Angeles, and she's an amazing yoga teacher. And I also attended some of her workshops about wellness of mind and body. And as 2023 was unfolding, I was thinking, oh man, we really need Kalina on Bed with Kate to share her knowledge about dealing with the stress and anxiety, because I'm sure for many of you, this year has been a crazy roller coaster. Even though this channel is about sex, you guys have no idea how stress and your sex life are related. And not only sex is affected by stress. Number one root of all illnesses is stress. So today, Kalina will share with you everything you need to know about how to navigate your life in the world we live in, and how to deal with the stress, and how stress and libido are related, and what healthy habits and practices can help you to overcome any shitty situation. So Kalina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Please introduce yourself and tell us, our viewers, a little bit about you.
Yeah, so like Kate said, my name's Kalina. I'm a yoga medicine therapeutic specialist. What that means is that I help people. And that ranges from dealing with stress, as Kate mentioned, to diet, nutrition, and overall health, as well as teaching community classes. I've been a teacher and an educator for 22 years, and I teach right now at Bohemia Yoga, which is in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. I offer community classes. I also run the teacher training school at the yoga studio, where I offer 200-hour teacher trainings and 500-hour teacher trainings. And I really have devoted my whole life to this practice. I don't really know how to do anything else. So it's a good thing that I enjoy my job. And I have 2 dogs and a husband, and my life's pretty, great.
That sounds wonderful, Kalina. As you guys can see, me and Kalina work in completely different fields. I'm telling you guys how to do hand jobs and how to use penis pumps, while Kalina is teaching yoga and even teaching yoga teachers. But what we have in common is that we are made of love, and we spread love, and we want you guys to feel better and realize your full potential. Today, Kalina will share her knowledge with you so your quality of life gets better. It's a podcast about how to stop being stressed out, get your head out of your ass, and start doing real things. I've been going through a lot this year. My wedding got cancelled, and I was in a very toxic relationship with a guy who was heavily medicated and had some medical psychiatric issues that I wasn't aware of. Every time when my love life gets too complicated, we have a podcast. So here we go again. And when I was living in this toxic situation with my ex, even though we both are hypersexual people, sometimes we could go for weeks without having sex, even though we were sleeping in the same bed every night. Basically, chronic stress and exposure to cortisol has lowered our sex hormones, right? Kalina, could you please tell us how stress and your libido are related, and what other areas of life and your health are affected by stress?
So as humans, as you probably guessed, we're pretty complex, right? So we have 2 different nervous systems that kind of run parallel to one another. The sympathetic nervous system is the accelerator. You can think of it as like the gas pedal for the human, right? And the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the second nervous system, is the brake. So if you think of yourself as a car, we use the accelerator, right, the gas pedal, when we experience difficult challenges like you expressed in our life. So when things are stressful and life is kind of like full force running ahead, we're constantly pushing on that accelerator. And when this happens, the stress hormone is released in our body, cortisol, right? And when we experience stress over a long period of time, and what's a long period of time? Define that. Well, longer than a few minutes, right? So typically the stress response is you see a stressor, right? A dog comes at you that's barking. You're stressed for a second, and then the dog leaves and your nervous system downregulates, right? But in prolonged stress, like a relationship that's rocky or a work situation that's stressful, the body continues to produce cortisol. And when that's happening, the sex hormone testosterone is not being produced normally. And so libido drops, right? Because that's what makes us horny. So if that's not happening, well, the absence of testosterone is going to change how we feel. Even if in our brain we want to feel differently, our body's like, nah, like I'm going to feel this way because this is what your nervous system is telling how it's telling me to feel. So
okay, so now we fully understand that if you guys are stressed out, don't expect your sex life to be pretty. And according to statistics, 57% of Americans feel paralyzed by stress, and 94% of workers report feeling stress from work. And I'm sure many of us feel stress from financial problems, pressure from work, your relationship problems. All of that contributes to increased stress levels. And it's very easy to get caught up in everyday madness and just not simply have time to focus on your well-being. Tension is a habit, and relaxing is a habit too. And bad habits can be broken and good habits can be formed. So Kalina, please help us to form good ones. And first, could you please tell us what lifestyle factors can contribute to increased stress levels?
Yeah, so lifestyle habits that increase stress, staying in the stressful situation, right? Not finding a way to detach, right? So regardless of what's causing the stress, taking time for yourself is important. And I know that like self-care like is a big term that people throw out, but self-care goes far beyond bubble baths and champagne. It's something that requires attention daily. Like you said, it's something we have to create a habit around, and taking just a few moments out of our day to ground ourselves and really dip into the present moment. What does that mean? Being present, right? And for me, I tell clients and students that just pausing and saying, oh, what do I see right now? What do I feel right now? What can I touch right now, right? What can I smell? What can I taste? These things bring us into the present moment. And when we're present, we can allow for stress to kind of evaporate. Other things that are important is being around people that don't stress us out, healthy eating habits, practices like yoga, but maybe yoga is not your thing. So any type of exercise is great. Really, walking, jogging, weightlifting, swimming, anything that's going to get you moving and out of your head and into your body.
Thank you. That's a very good advice, but it requires a lot of changes,
For sure.
And especially I think it's hard for people who live in big cities. Like in New York, it feels even more because there, like, it feels that everybody is stressed.
Mm-hmm.
We live in Los Angeles. Kalina is teaching yoga in downtown Los Angeles, and I live next door. And I can tell for sure that people who live in big cities are generally more stressed out in comparison with people who live in nature. And 4 or 5, I don't remember when, I went 4 years ago, I went to Hawaii, and I met a lot of local people who introduced me to a whole different way of living without any stress, and where you're just happy every day, and your emotions, your stress, they don't define who you are. First, it was like a bit shocking for me because I'm from Russia. Like, there people are stressed all the time from the moment they were born, and I understand that Hawaii is a very spiritual land, right? It's next to volcanoes, and those people, they don't go to yoga studios. They are born with yoga. Like, they've been doing it their entire life without even thinking about it too much. And when I was introducing some of my Hawaii local friends to my friends in LA, first my friends in LA were thinking like, oh my gosh, those people are just careless. But they actually live in harmony with themselves and in harmony with the earth. I'm sure that we can't compare those people who live in the middle of the ocean next to a volcano to people who live in a big city. But I'm sure that stress resistance of teachers from Bohemia Yoga, Kalina's colleagues, is a way greater than average white collar guy. So you live and work in downtown Los Angeles, right? How do you stay grounded? And what lifestyle changes and healthy habits can someone who lives right here or somewhere in New York can incorporate in their daily life to make it less stressful?
Yeah. So daily habits that are super important. It starts actually the night before. Like, amazing sleep hygiene is so important. So creating a ritual, if you will, and you can replace that word with another word if you don't like ritual, provides a nice kind of foundation, if you will, to have a great night's sleep. That great night's sleep is going to allow for you to wake up refreshed and feel renewed. And then a morning practice, right? And when I say practice, I don't mean that you have to go for a 5-mile run, but having a ritual in the morning. When I wake up, I stretch and I brush my teeth and I have this for breakfast, or I take time and I have my coffee or my tea. And sitting down and really planning out for the day, right? As much as some of us are kind of against structure, structure creates foundation. And having that time to know like what your day is going to look like and having that time for yourself in the morning and at night is super important to stay grounded, especially when you're in a place like a city where you're going to walk outside of your door and you don't know what's going to happen, right? So especially here, right? So creating an atmosphere when you're at home that you have a way to kind of navigate and control those moments so that you can prepare yourself basically by having that night and morning routine and a practice like yoga or you're working out allows for you to do the work for your nervous system when nothing's wrong. That way, when something does happen and you walk outside and I don't know, someone cuts you off or something like that, you're able to pause and be present and like, I'm not bothered by that, right? And that's another reason why I'm like, get on your yoga mat, right? Because basically you're practicing doing the work when nothing's wrong. Hopefully when you're on your yoga mat, you're enjoying yourself and there's not as many stressors, hopefully.
Okay, but can you please clarify how does your night yoga routine looks like, for example?
Night yoga routine. Well, for myself personally, I don't believe in a one size fits all, but what I will say, working with students and clients for many years, understanding what you need personally is super important. For me, I can speak for myself, like at night, I check in with myself. Sometimes I like to practice, yoga specifically, like the postures. Sometimes I just want to sit and listen to meditation. Sometimes I want to practice yoga nidra. Sometimes I don't want to do any of those things and I just want to go to bed, right? I need more sleep. So I'm going to follow with what feels right for me, right? And in the morning, it is important to get moving, right? One of the best things you can do for yourself in the morning is wake up and go outside. Go outside. And those first 10 minutes of being in the sunlight are actually priming your brain to produce melatonin 16 hours later. So if you don't go out in sunlight, even if the sun's not out, even if it's overcast, your body doesn't really know to start doing what it's designed to do, right? So even in a city, going out, getting some sun directly in your eye, perfect. And that's going to kickstart the brain and put you in a position where you can make decisions about what works best for you that day.
Should we do it during the sunrise?
I'm going to sound like a really weird yoga teacher and say, like, not everybody is designed to wake up at sunrise, right? Like, not everybody is, especially, you know, if your job, whatever that is, requires you to be up late. You know, there's plenty of people that their job starts at 12 in the day. And so they're up later at night. That's fine. So whether you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, whatever your rise time is, go outside for a few minutes, get some sunlight, get that production in the brain happening, and start your conversation about what shifts you can make that day to make your life feel grounded, less stressful, and more at peace within yourself, whatever that is. That does require, that sounds easier said than done, I know, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, but all it takes is just repeating these practices every day.
Repetition is the key.
Yeah.
And that's with anything, whether you're trying to create a new habit with a physical exercise routine, whether it's nutrition based, your diet based, whether you're trying to gain weight, lose weight. If you're not consistent, it's going to be really challenging to create a habit.
But right? Is it true that it takes 30 days to create a new habit?
You know, statistics say 14 days minimum, honestly, but yeah, 30 days is like double, right? So of course, if you've done something for 30 days, chances are you're going to keep doing it, because by that point, you're going to have seen a shift. Whatever your goal was, you're going to see some sort of change. I find it hard to believe that anything you do for 30 days wouldn't create some sort of shift. So yeah, we'll say 30 days. Why not, right? It definitely takes longer than 3 days.
Okay, guys, so you have to be, conscious about that and just get on this ride. And after 30 days, you'll see a big difference. And you touched the yoga subject, and let's talk a little bit about that, because yoga has become a very big part of my life, and I'm really grateful to Kalina and my teachers, because the change that I have experienced when yoga entered my life was really like enormous, right? And yoga is an ancient practice that is rooted in Indian teachings. It started as a spiritual practice, but it has become more popular as a way of promoting your physical health. And yoga offers mindfulness, and it helps to get through daily stress, that's for sure. Yoga can benefit all three aspects that are affected by stress: our mind, body, and breathing. So as someone who practices yoga every day, do you think it's fair to say that it can become a natural stress reliever for all?
So that's an interesting question. All right. So again, like I said, not everything's a one size fits all. It depends on the person. That being said, most people do benefit from yoga practice. The question is, what type of yoga practice? I think a lot of people, especially with the rise of social media, think that yoga is handstands and headstands, and you got to be able to do backflips and things like that. And that would be intimidating for someone who perhaps has never done those things, right? So they're right, that's scary. It's like, well, I don't want to go to yoga. It may help me, but in the meantime, I might break if I go to class because I can't do that. And the truth is, there's many, many paths into the yoga space, whether that's taking a all levels, vinyasa flow class, a yin class, which is more stretching, restorative class, which is far more, relaxing for the nervous system for many, or something more vigorous like a weightlifting yoga class, which those exist too. And so I think the important thing is if, especially if you're starting with a yoga journey, as go to the yoga studio space and ask, hey, I'm new to this practice. I really am curious. What would be a good starting point for me? What class would be open to someone who's never done this before? And try it out. You don't have anything to lose. You only have something to gain, right? Yeah. So I do think that many people that I cross paths with would say that yoga has helped with stress reduction, because it gives you a place to land, right? It gives you a time in your day that's just for you, regardless of what class you take, right? This is my hour to just be in my own body and my own breath, regardless of the outcome. And just think about any other time that you would stop and pause and take a few breaths. You usually feel better. So imagine if you did that for a whole hour. I mean, stress reduction is kind of just part of the gig.
Exactly. And I attended Kalina's class with the live music. And was it Yoga Nidra?
So we offer at the studio, my husband and I, 2 different types of classes. We have a music flow class, which is more of a vigorous practice with live music. And then we have the Yoga Nidra class, which is a lot slower and more, all levels friendly for new people and people who've been practicing for a while. Both include music or sound as part of the experience.
And I also want to mention that the sound and live music also have positive effect on your stress levels.
For sure.
Because music is a frequency, and some frequencies are healing. And for sure, like, this is how I felt after your classes with your husband. All right, so how often do you think someone needs to do yoga on a weekly basis to improve their mental health? Because to be honest with you, like, when I went to the first yoga studio, it was a chain yoga studio in Hollywood. I didn't feel the same way as I felt at Bohemia Yoga, because they were more focused on the physical health, losing weight, and they were perceiving yoga as just another way to lose weight. And there is a big difference.
There is. So I'll speak to 2 things that you said, Kate. First being, it's important for you to pick a place and a teacher that fits with what your goals are, right? If your goals are to lose weight and for yoga to be part of your physical fitness routine, then a place like you described is perfect, right? If your goal is stress reduction and learning about all the benefits of yoga, you had mentioned that this is an ancient practice. You're right. It's not just about the physical body. It's about the mind. It's about the spirit. And so your teacher's intention also matters, right? Having a teacher that knows that and also has felt that in their own life, that teacher is going to inject that into their teaching and leave their students feeling better when they leave, right? And so that can take some time to find the right fit, but just like relationships and sexual partners take time finding the right fit, finding a yoga teacher also takes time that feels like it's the right fit for you. To speak to your second question about how often, I am biased and I think that everybody should practice every day, right? Whether you can make it to the studio or you practice at home, whether you have 5 minutes or you have an hour, yoga is an embodiment, right? Right now I am doing yoga. I am breathing, I'm staying present, I'm looking at you in the eyes, I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm responding from the heart space. And so in that way, like, we're all doing yoga all the time. Like, you speak about your friends in Hawaii, like, they just feel like they're one with nature. And so that's the ultimate goal, right? But let's say yoga, even the word yoga is like a new word for you. How about just start one day and see how you feel, right? And, ultimately, I think most people kind of aim for like 3 times a week, okay. And then
I'm still on track.
No, you're totally on track, But as you know, you do it 3 times a week, then you're like, maybe I can get a 4th day in, maybe I can get a 5th day in. And then it becomes that habit, which we were talking about. And then you can't live without it, right? Just like anything else.
Yeah, I'll tell you how I got into yoga later. But yeah, I just want to point out that there are so many approaches to understanding yoga. My path to yoga was through Indian teachings. Because before, like, I was working out, but it was most weightlifting or dancing or anything else, but not yoga. And from this perspective of Indian teachings, yoga is the journey of the selves through the selves to the self, right? So that's what's said in Bhagavad Gita. And the body benefits from the movement and the mind benefits from the stillness. And what exactly is the role that yoga plays in connecting you with your higher self, basically? And is it true that yoga helps people to learn to connect with a higher source of wisdom?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So my teacher used to say, once you stop asking questions, like once you think you know everything, it's no longer yoga. So another way to say that is, yoga is about living in the questions, right? I usually tell students, like, if you have a little bit of wonderment, if you're like, what's this all about? Then you're a perfect candidate for being a yoga student, right? Because it requires to ask myself, how do I feel right now? How does this pose make me feel? How does this question that you're asking me make me feel? So that when I'm not on my yoga mat, I'm like, well, how do I feel? What makes me feel good, right? And so when you're able to do that, when you're able to live in that wonderment, able to live in the questions, then you're going to learn more about yourself, right? You're going to learn more about what it's like to be in this meat suit that you call your body, how things make you feel, how you respond to certain stimuli or certain stressors. And you're going to feel more connected to a higher source, because that higher source is you, right? You are, right? And once you feel that, you'll start to be able to interface with other humans more authentically, creatures, animals, nature, because we are all kind of doing the same stuff, right? I think the biggest thing is thinking that we're different. We're not, right? Like, you have pain, I have pain, you have joy, I have joy. And so when you get into the practice of yoga, that's the goal, is to see same, right? And to feel that connection. And that's also the connection to something bigger, whatever you call that thing, whether it's God, yoga, your own self, whatever that is. Like, you can't deny that. You can't go to practice and be embodied in yoga and not be a better person. It's just impossible.
So there is this higher source, right?
For sure, yeah.
Because when I moved from Russia to the United States, like in Russia, all this Orthodox Christianity really, I think, made me have a PTSD after that, you know? So I was rejecting the fact that there was something after this life, and the whole topic of spirituality wasn't really on my mind at all. So how did you find yoga, or did yoga find you?
That's funny that you asked that. May I say both? So when I was a teenager, I studied philosophy. Like, that was like my thing, you know? And so you can't enter the world of philosophy without learning about ancient philosophy, right? And then I was a professional dancer. That was my career at the time, and my whole world revolved around that. And my teacher at the time said, hey, you know, I think that you might benefit from yoga. You seem pretty stressed out. And I was like, I'm not stressed out. You're stressed out, you know, like very combative, and just didn't want to go to the yoga studio, because I thought, I don't want to sit around and om. Right? Like, that's what I thought of yoga, is like just sitting around. And as someone who was moving for a living, the last thing I wanted to do was like be still. And I went to class and I had my ass handed to me. Like, this class was so hard. And I was like, oh my gosh, like,
which class it was?
It was a power yoga class. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I just had my ass handed to me. And as someone who was an athlete, I was like, wow, I was very confused. And so I just kept going back. And what happened was, like, I was poor at that time, you know, like a student, had $0. And the studio that I went to was like, if you do yoga for 365 days, like, we'll give you your membership for free. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, as somebody who's just obsessive compulsive, I was like, I got you. Like, I'm totally gonna do this, right? Like, I can totally do this. And so I ended up doing it in like 6 months instead of a year. And anytime you do something that much in that short amount of time, I kind of fell in love with it. I didn't want to be a teacher though. I was just kind of like, it's just like an exercise for me. And my teacher at the time was like, hey, I think you would be a really amazing yoga teacher. You're really hardcore. Like, you should do the teacher. You should become a teacher. And I was like, I don't have the money or the time to do this. Like, I am going to be a performer. I'm going to be on stage, you know, and fast forward to now, we see that I was wrong about that. But
she still will, but
different. And the school that I went to offered a scholarship to me to do the teacher training, and it ultimately changed my life. And through the past January will be 22 years I've been teaching. There hasn't been a time in my life that I'm not happy for the practice, through divorce, through breakups, through job changes, through city changes, through illness, through happiness. Like, it's just been there for me and taught me so much about myself and about just being human. And it's made me a better human because I understand like that we're all just trying to figure life out, you know? So like, I'd say I went, but then it like it kind of like attacked me. Like yoga attacked me and was like, you can't leave, you know? So and, like, I kind of feel like it had its claws in me and like, I didn't really have a choice. And thank God I didn't change or run away. I have tried a few times to like run away.
Why would you try to run away from this beautiful practice?
Probably because it requires you to be honest about like your life, right? There's so many times that I wanted to like stay in relationships or like stay in friendships, and like my yoga and my higher self was like, this is no good, you know? And so it requires me to step up to the plate and say bye to so many things, but for the better. And now I don't have as much problem for it. When I was in my 20s, I totally like fought it a little bit, because I don't think any of us at first want to like be honest with ourselves sometimes that things aren't working out. We want to think that like we know better, right? Or that
and in your 20s you just feel very unsure, like you let your emotions stay on the way of like being your higher self. That's for sure.
Or you learning about your own gut instinct, you know, like listening to your gut. I think when I was in my 20s I was still learning how to do that, you know, learning how to listen to the gut. I wanted to think that what I saw with my eyes was true, and that's not always true. I'm sure you have your own experience with that too.
Yeah, well, I realized that your emotions and your feelings about something don't define who you are.
For sure.
But still, you know, like distinguish the difference between what is your thoughts and feelings and emotions and what is reality is still kind of hard.
No, for sure.
Thank you, Kalina, for sharing with us about your journey. I also have a funny story about how I came to yoga, but it's very different, guys. And I'm not an expert, I'm not a teacher, but I believe that everyone who is watching this right now can definitely benefit from entering yoga in your life. So basically, my journey started maybe like 3 years ago, something. And as I said, I wasn't spiritual, I wasn't religious. I was working out like every now and then, but still it wasn't like my lifestyle, to be honest with you. So basically, I went to Hawaii. So I was planning my trip to Hawaii for the first time. And my friend from LA told me, do you want to have a beach vacation and just relax? Or do you want to have an adventure? Because I know some local people there and they can show you around. And I go like, yeah, sure, I want an adventure, right? So he connected me with this local guy in Hawaii, and we met when I went there for the first time. We clicked, we started hanging out, and this guy really loved to party. Like, he was like a party person. So we went to the pool party, and then it lasted like for a long time. And then the next day or a day after in the morning, we were still partying, and there was one guy there who had Indian name, but at the same time, he looked like super American. And it seemed a little weird to me in the first place. And he never talked, but he was listening to me. And I was like drinking and telling something about Nikola Tesla, about pyramids, you know, the stuff that at least I like to discuss when I'm not sober. But I don't promote this. But anyways, at some point in the morning, this guy, the Indian guy, the American guy with the Indian names, said, let's go to the temple and have lunch. I thought that the temple was the name of the restaurant, right? Because like, where else you would go to have lunch after the party that lasted that long? And I said, yeah, okay, like food sounds really good right now. We drove there in 2 cars, like I'm with my boyfriend and the Indian guy in another car. We pulled up and I see it's a Hindu temple, Christian temple, right? And I said to my dude, like, where we are, because are we like for real at the temple? And he goes, yes. I said, like, where is the restaurant? He said, inside of the temple. It's the best vegetarian restaurant in Hawaii. I said, look, like, you haven't even slept. How are we going to the temple right now? And he said, look, no, don't worry, because this guy within his name, he works at the temple. I said, okay. And now I see that guy changing his clothes, his party outfit to Indian outfit, and he really goes to the temple to work. So he's a devotee. And we had this beautiful vegetarian lunch. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, so I could have eaten like that every day. But I don't really like to cook, so that's why I probably didn't. But anyways, so he walked me through the temple. He was telling me something about this Indian teachings, about the whole history of it, about the whole concept of it. But I wasn't ready yet. Like, I mean, I was still kind of rejecting it, but I still felt that was a place of love, that everything was so peaceful. I was so grounded, and I had never felt myself that grounded before. And then, so didn't speak to that guy for 9 months. And when I was in LA on Christmas the same year, I went to the exhibition that was called Mystics of the Universe. And there was like an immersive visual experience together with meditations. So I did that, and then I came back home, and it just hit me. Like, it hit me, and it was such a strong experience, you know, like I was just feeling that everything that I knew before, I can just throw in a garbage can. That everything that we have here is just a little part of our journey, and that my soul has been through so much, and how the world works, how we all are part of one system, and how this oneness works, and how the universe works, and all of this was just, you know, I couldn't stop those thoughts. And it kept going on for 3 days. I thought I was losing my mind. I was trying to watch porn, have a glass of wine, do something that I used to do before to relax, and I couldn't. And then, all of a sudden, on day 3, this guru from Hawaii temple called me out of nowhere. He felt it, like he knew that I was having this breakthrough experience telepathically. He called me without even having my number. Like we didn't talk, and he called me and he said, you know, like everything's okay. Like you are dealing with a lot. You have to go do yoga, do this, read this. So by the end of the day, he has become my guru. But that's how I met yoga, because I was so overwhelmed from all these thoughts that weren't in my 2D head before. And I just had to do it to get my mind straight. Yeah, so that's a funny story.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for being here, and that we'll have an opportunity to discuss those topics, because I'm sure a lot of people like me, because I was rejecting this completely, that there was something after life, that there was something before life on Earth. And again, this whole thing just flipped my reality 360 degrees. Yeah. All right. So let's move on. And all spiritual gurus and yogis say that breathing is a key, and that meditation has to become a part of our daily routine. And meditation brings wisdom, and the lack of meditation brings ignorance. And scientific explanation to that is when you breathe, it sends the signals to your brain to relax your body. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I have made it a habit to fall asleep listening to healing frequencies or some meditations. Plus, when I wake up, I try to breathe consciously. How else would you explain the importance of breathing, and what are the best meditation techniques to eliminate stress in the world we are living?
That's a good question. So to keep it simple and approachable, One thing that a lot of people don't know is that you're always breathing. You do know that, but maybe you don't recognize that there are different types of breathing, right? So for many of us who are walking around, even on a low level amount of stress, we're breathing in the clavicular area. So at the top portion of ourselves, and that's going to not relax us, right? So there are 3 different types of breath. You can breathe here, you can breathe like here, or you can breathe all the way down deep into your belly, fancy terms aside. So the basic way to really, really start that conversation of sending signals to your body and your brain to relax is to take deep breaths. Right?
With your belly.
With your belly. You want to send it all the way down to your belly. So you want to feel, and this isn't, most of us walk around trying to be thin or like to, hold things in, but actually.
That's me.
But actually, we want to actually expand our belly like a balloon. So we want to feel the breath expand from side to side and front to back. And the exhale is important too. So optimal breath exchange is about 6 breaths per minute, in through the nose and out through the nose. And this is going to be without having a guru or a teacher teach you, just breathing like that. Inhaling and exhaling. Feeling the body. So 6 breaths per minute is optimal to downregulate, right? So it could extend longer, right? The more you breathe in, the more relaxed you become. There might be pauses between those breaths, right? So think about when you're sleeping, you're probably not taking 6 breaths per minute, right? It's probably a lot less than that. But if you're stressed out, you're breathing like 15 breaths per minute, like you're breathing faster, right? So you want to slow it down. And it can also be helpful if you think of your nose. Earlier in the podcast, I talked about the gas pedal and the brake. So the way that works for your breathing through your nostrils is the right side is the brake, or the accelerator rather. So right side nostril pushes the gas and gets you pumped up. The left side nostril is the brake. So even doing opposite nostril breathing, or if you want to downregulate, just putting your finger over the right side nostril and taking those long breaths in and out through your left side can help downregulate the nervous system.
Only through nose, not exhaling through mouth, right?
No. So, those little hairs that you have in your nose, they filter the air. So it makes the air more bioavailable if you breathe in and out through your nose.
So guys, don't remove hair from your nostrils.
Yeah. Well, if it's sticking out of the nostril, maybe, but you don't want to
I didn't know that. They're there. I was trying to remove them all the time.
Some of them grow long and they might kind of poke out. You can remove those. You have plenty in there. But yeah, that's why. That's the basic answer of why you want to breathe in and out through your nose. Is it just filters air.
Okay, so when we are at the yoga studio, sometimes we have to breathe out with our mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that do?
So the breathing out in a hot yoga room is just to kind of reset. So sometimes all of us, are unknowingly holding our breath. We don't realize it, right? Especially when you're doing a posture, like trying to hold it and you're like, am I doing it right? Right, and you're holding your breath. So the teacher might say, exhale out of your mouth, as a reminder, like you should be breathing, right? So once you exhale through your mouth, the automatic response is going to be to take a breath in. So we're just trying to get you to breathe. Really, it there's no other reason other than that. And it can help if you're hot, if you're overheated, it can help you kind of cool off, right? Think about like a doggy who pants, right? It's helping them cool off. So when you breathe out through your mouth, it'll kind of help you do that.
So just so our viewers can take notes, if we do it for eliminating stress without hot yoga room, we have to do it through our nose.
Yeah,
right?
Breathe in and out through your nose.
Okay.
Nothing's gonna happen to you if you do breathe out of your mouth, but you might not feel as relaxed.
And if we can take more than 6, we should, right? Because as more we're breathing.
You want to slow down the breath, right? So you want to slow down the breath. So one basic breathing exercise is to breathe in for 4 and out for 5. So inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4, exhaling for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and doing that over and over again.
Okay, then another question.
Yeah.
So when we breathe quickly and it makes us very lightheaded, what does that do? Is it the state where we are in meditative state?
When you breathe quick?
Yeah.
So there are lots of different breathing techniques. In my field, I don't do fast breathing. I try to slow the breath down because the nervous system needs those slower breaths. Some practices will have faster breathing because they're trying to purge or eliminate or doing a specific Kira or cleansing technique. That's not my area of expertise, but there are some times where a teacher might ask you to do that, to like purge or to release. But in my practice, I usually am trying to get people to slow down their breath.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's try slow down first, and then if you guys want to get into like deeper meditative state, maybe
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't feel too comfortable to me when I breathe too quickly, but it definitely changed my perception of things, like
For
my
sure.
state of mind. Okay, so at one of your workshops, you were telling us about the vagus nerve. And I hadn't heard this term before your workshop. Yeah, I apologize, but again, I'm not a guru, I'm not a yogist, so I just have a sex education YouTube channel and I work in the adult industry. But anyways, I found out that vagus nerve is crucial to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Could you please explain our viewers what is vagus nerve and what role vagus nerve plays in managing stress, and how we can stimulate this nerve to make us more stress resistant?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the vagus nerve is sometimes in yoga practices sometimes referred to like polyvagal theory. It's more of a scientific thing than anything else. My background being science. And the vagus nerve sometimes is referred to as the wandering nerve. It's one of the 12 cranial nerves in the body, cranial meaning your head. And the best way to describe it is just by the wandering nerve. So it starts kind of back here behind your ear and it wanders throughout the body, even through your belly and into your sexual organs, like reproductive organs. It's responsible for a lot of various internal organ functions, including your digestion, your heart rate, your breathing, your cardiovascular activity, and your reflex actions. So what's a reflex action? It's like coughing, sneezing, swallowing, vomiting, or purging. And so it plays a role in this autonomic nervous system, which controls people's actions unconsciously. So the vagus nerve is allowing you to breathe without having to think about breathing, right? Or to swallow without having to think like swallow now, right? So this is going on all the time. Among its many operations of the body, and the brain controls it. So the vagus nerve is really ultimately responsible for relaxing tension in the body. And it creates homeostasis, or another way to think of it is it creates balance in the body. So when it's not functioning in that, we call it rest or digest state, you'll feel anxious, right? Remember those two parallel nervous systems? This is part of that. So in order to feel like we're down regulating or that we're stimulating the vagus nerve, there are lots of things we could do. Diet being one of them, eating a whole nutritious diet. I used to say whole foods, not the grocery store, actual whole foods like vegetables and fruits and things like that. Grounding foods for the vagus nerve, because there is a gut-mind connection, and many of you may have heard that in passing. But other things that can help us stimulate the vagus nerve are actually things that you can do without going to the yoga studio. Gargling stimulates the vagus nerve right here in the throat. Singing, chanting, humming. These are easy ways to stimulate the vagus nerve. You can also practice yoga, right? Compression. So anytime you're in a yoga pose and you're rotating, you're twisting, you're stimulating this. Breathing exercises. And there are some other tactics that you can use, like pushing your finger. There are lots of different techniques, but if you want to do it right now, singing, gargling, humming.
Okay, so what about people who have a terrible voice like me? Because every time when I sing at karaoke, people just leave. Like, I have seen so many empty karaoke rooms after I was singing. that I'm not gonna go this way. Could you please tell us about tapping technique that doesn't require us to use our voices if they are not pretty enough? Maybe we can do it together real quick.
Yeah. So we did something just now that's also really good for vagus nerve is laughing. So if you don't want to sing or you're afraid you're going to clear out a karaoke room, you could just laugh. But tapping is another technique. It's not as used as commonly for vagus nerve specifically. Tapping is usually used for just general relaxation, and tapping usually is on specific points in the body. So for instance, like you can just generally tap wherever it feels nice, right? Like you have nerves that grow out your body that you feel good. Like someone, if they tickle your arm, like it feels nice, right? But tapping usually will refer to like tapping your temples.
Oh, let's do it together.
Yeah,
so
tapping
yours,
temples.
remember.
Right, and you'll notice immediately, it's a light, like a feather tap, right? You don't want to be punching your head or anything like that. And you can just no. But someone at home might be, really. And then you can move to your forehead and to your chin and a really nice spot, that beginning point of the vagus nerve right behind your ear.
Let's do it. We'll benefit from that.
You're going to sleep immediately, right? You're ready for bed now.
No,
you're so relaxed.
No. Let's stop it at the point so we don't go to bed, right? But that's the idea, right? Yeah. So we have to tap like certain spots in our body. Yeah.
It depends on what your goal is, right? So for instance, let's say this time of year, people will start to feel like their immune system is kind of on alert, right? Colds, sinuses, allergies. It can be nice to tap these areas that we just did, including like right under your clavicle, right across the chest, because you have lymph nodes that live here in the tissue, and you're just stimulating them, asking them to kind of send out things. The lymphatic system doesn't have its own pump like your heart does. And so the tapping just helps kind of create a conversation that you want to remove like excess lymph from the body. Now there's a whole lot more science that goes into it, but you don't really need to know all that. Just know that this will make me feel good.
Please take a note and use it when you need to. Kalina, thank you. You have told us about so many things to eliminate stress. But I'm sure that there are a lot of people who are watching this video and they deal with the stress some other ways, because a lot of Americans, for example, get prescribed medication from stress and anxiety, and they don't even realize the downsides of these medications instead of dealing with stress. And another issue that I wanted to bring up is prescribed meds from stress and anxiety, because my ex was prescribed like a huge cocktail of different medications from stress and anxiety. And I heard about like the whole big pharma propaganda before, and I knew that like they were paying psychiatrists to prescribe certain meds, and there was like whole advertising campaign to get people hooked up on those meds. And this guy, like, so how we actually realized that that was an issue, basically he got a new psychiatrist, and the new psychiatrist changed his entire cocktail to whole new cocktails that didn't work that well, right? And he was taking this stuff like for 4 years before the new dog. So basically when he changed this cocktail, his mental health was completely destroyed. All right, so we almost sued this doctor, to be honest with you. But anyways, the whole point is that I asked him, like, how you, like such a smart and educated individual, could get prescribed such medication without even knowing how withdrawals would look like and how addictive it was. And then I realized that a lot of Americans, they just go to the doctor when they have an issue, and they think that there is a magical pill from everything. What do you think about prescription drugs and medication from stress and anxiety? And do you think that like natural organic ways to eliminate stress work the same well as those drugs?
So you are right? There is this kind of American way, if you will, that like, I don't want to do the work. I don't want to do the heavy lifting. And if there's some, shortcut, I want it, right? And if the doctor says, or someone says that if I take this pill, I will feel better, right? Or if I take this pill, I will lose weight, or whatever the case may be, there is this kind of natural thing. Well, why wouldn't I just do it, right? Then I don't have to do the work. Unfortunately, prescription drugs and antidepressants, they can treat symptoms of depression. That is true, right? Many people take these drugs and it treats the symptoms. They don't feel sad anymore for a period of time. Maybe they don't sleep as much. Maybe they feel more energy. That's typically what happens because the drugs create this conversation with parts of the brain to communicate with one another, right? So if those things haven't been communicating, you're going to feel different at first. The problem is that eventually people that are on these medications start to realize that the drugs don't address the cause of the depression, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's very important to have a full spectrum of care. If you're struggling with depression or anxiety or stress, this is why healthcare providers often recommend psychotherapy or talk therapy, yoga, exercise, nutrition, because you need that full toolbox. And when you have that full toolbox, it is quite common for people who are on medication to be able to stop taking it because they have that team of people that are helping them, that full spectrum of support. Because what we eat and what we do and how we talk to ourselves and to others affects how we feel, right? Far more than taking a pill.
Yeah, at the same time, these pills, like some of those pills, they are so addictive that even though, like, I saw a great example. The guy was doing all of the things that you were mentioning. Yeah. Yoga every day, super healthy, like healthy diet, healthy lifestyle in terms of like everything else besides taking this whole cocktail of medication every day. But it didn't really work, Yeah. And I think that there are some certain medications that can actually make more harm rather than good, because in other countries, somewhere in Europe or somewhere in Asia, it's not that nobody would prescribe you that. Like, you would go to jail because of taking that.
Yeah. Well, it is important to note that there are a lot of drugs that are available in America that doctors prescribe that are not allowed in other parts of the world because they have adverse side effects. All right. So it's important that, like I said, it's not a one size fits all. Nothing is. And so because I am not a physician per se. So like your doctor might have some reason why they put you on a medication. So I'm not an advocate for tell people to just go off their medication without talking and getting more than one opinion, right? The same thing with starting to take something. Why would you just take something because someone told you? Maybe you need to do your own research. Maybe you need to talk to someone who's devoted their life to understanding how these things work and how these medicines interact, because for one person, it might be really helpful to be on that medication. And for someone else, it might be detrimental to their health and well-being. And so as much as we'd like to think that everything works the same way for everybody, it doesn't. Right. And so that would be where I got the tomatoes thrown at me, because I don't have an easy answer. Right. But the truth is, it's important that you be an advocate for yourself. There are lots of other things that you could try versus just prescription drugs. Not to say that they would work either, but you do have options. You do.
But the whole like farmer thing wants us to get on those drugs.
They want you to get on the drugs, and they also want you to eat the food that's going to make you gain weight and be fat and have to be on more medication. They want you to be sick, is another way to say it. I think that most of us instinctively do know that, right? Like, if we are sick, then they make more money.
Exactly. And that's the whole reason behind this, why your doctor might have suggested you medication from your ADHD or from your sleeping disorders or from your stress and anxiety. So every time when you sign up for something like that, make your own, do your own research, do your homework, and think about it twice, because it's very easy to start getting those drugs, especially if you live in the United States, but it's very hard to get off them.
And a lot of people are feel sad and depressed because they have something really, really basic going on. A blood panel would help you find that. Like a vitamin D deficiency will make you feel depressed. So instead of taking a prescription pill, you could take vitamin D and then get out into the sunshine and you will feel better. So that's important to ask questions, to the doctor, to the physician. Why? Have you checked my levels? Like, have you done a full blood panel? Am I low in vitamin B, vitamin D, these essential things that we need that maybe we weren't taught in school that we need to look out for, right?
I'm sure nobody has been told that, because for some reason, like all of this healthy habits and things that are really crucial for our body to function, nobody talks about that in the school or your parents. It's just something that you have to discover for yourself, but only after you got through some hard times where you really needed to. Okay. You touched the subject of the diet, and that United States, in the society of consumption, I would say, because when I came here for the first time, I was looking at the map and like, oh my gosh, like they have McDonald's and Starbucks on every block. Because, like in Europe or somewhere else, like we still have these chains, but it's not that they're like every mile.
Every corner.
Yeah. It's, so basically, all yogis and yoga teachers and Hindu people, like they mostly promote vegetarian diet. Do you agree with that? And why do you think it is healthy?
Yeah, so the first reason why many yoga practitioners advocate for vegetarian, vegan diet is because of one of the key points of the 8-limb path, being nonviolence or ahimsa, right? So nonviolence extends to being kind to ourselves and others, but also animals, right? So vegetarianism and veganism is important for many people who are really following this 8-limb path because of that. And there's a lot of health benefits to eating mostly plants, vegetables, and fruits, right? That being said, there's also a great amount of evidence that would support that for some individuals, like it's important that they do eat protein. So for some people, like myself, I am not vegetarian. I do eat protein, animal protein. And this conversation we have a lot at the yoga studio, especially in educational settings. And my advice to anyone who wants to live a more ethical life, and maybe you love animals, but you have found that like not eating protein, animal protein makes you sick. Like I get ill when I don't eat like a really well-balanced diet for myself, then it's important that you find ethically sourced things, right? That the protein that I am buying is the animals were treated kindly and fairly. And so it's taking an extra step to know where things are coming from, like who you're buying them from and how they were sourced. But some teachers and some practitioners don't even do that. They just eat vegetarian and vegan diets.
How is your diet related to your stress levels and your stress response? Because I have watched like a few documentaries about how all this junk food shuts down certain areas of your brain. So you become stupid. So as more fast food you eat, as dumber you get.
Yeah, so you are what you eat, right? So it is important that you eat nutritionally dense food and whole foods and things that are don't have a lot of ingredients that you can't pronounce or you've never heard the name of, right? When you look at the back of the box of something, if you can't say the name that's there, then you probably shouldn't eat it, right? If it doesn't just say carrot or it doesn't just say egg, right? There's evidence that like if it was made in a factory, maybe it's not good for you, but again, to each its own. How diet affects you as a person is that the things that we eat carry nutritional value, right? Like fruits, veggies, carry these, going back to the conversation of prescription drugs, like and maybe you have a vitamin D deficiency. Well, you get vitamin D from the food you eat too, right? Vitamin B, C. So it's important that the diet that is covering all your nutritional needs, right? McDonald's is not going to cover all your nutritional needs. Starbucks is not going to cover all your nutritional needs versus like having, you know, a full spectrum of fruits and veggies in a day, right? So when we don't, it also affects, it's important to note, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but men and women have different cycles, right? So women have, you know, the 28-day cycle of the menstrual cycle, and through that period of change, your nutritional needs change as well. And so when you don't meet your nutritional needs, depending on where you're at your cycle, then you can have adverse side effects, right? Like your menstrual cycle can be disrupted, your libido can be disrupted, cortisol levels, and men's hormone cycle is on a 24-hour span of time. So we're different in that way, but our nutritional needs are important in keeping that hormone cycle production healthy. When it's unhealthy and we're not getting the things that we need, then we're going to have side effects like low libido, stress, insomnia, fatigue. The list goes on and on and on and on.
All right, so you touched a very interesting topic about the menstrual cycle, and right
It's
now,
a whole other podcast.
yeah, but just for myself, because with all my stress in 2024, my period has become super unstable, like once in 2 months. What would you recommend to someone like me?
Yeah. So for someone like you, stress does affect your menstrual cycle. I mean, I think that that's a common thing that women and people who have menstrual cycles are aware of, that stress can make your period not happen, or maybe it happens early. But there are a lot of other things that are factored in too. So nutrition, diet. So in your case, if you're not having your period, I would immediately assume that you're probably stressed out, or you've been traveling a lot. When you do travel a lot, it does mess up your cycle when you change time zones and things like that. That goes back to that whole conversation. When your sleep cycle is disrupted, your menstrual cycle is disrupted because it's part of your circadian rhythm. So it's going to be really important for someone like yourself to go back to some sort of routine that you can follow every day and try to stick to it, so that your body is reminded that it's okay, that it's safe, that it's okay to go through its normal cycles, your menstrual cycle being one of them, and that you're doing the best that you can to remain as stress-free as you can.
But nutrition-wise,
yeah. So I would have to see and ask you what you're eating.
I'm eating very healthy. Like, I'm eating oatmeal. I eat oatmeal in the morning. I eat eggs. I eat protein with a salad in the evening. Some fiber, like rice, risotto. I don't know, like spaghetti or something like that. Protein bars, veggies, fruits.
Yeah. So one little fact that a lot of people don't know is that they're like, I eat healthy. They're listing things like you just did. The issue is they're not eating the right things. Like, depending on where you're at in your cycle, you have 4 phases of your menstrual cycle every month. Each one of those cycles requires a different list of foods that you should eat.
Okay, I had no idea about that. Kalina, thank you.
Of course, yeah. And I'd be more than happy to direct you personally to some resources for that, so you can learn a little bit more, and maybe we can continue the conversation. But there's a lot to unpack there.
Okay.
But it's all good stuff. It's all things to get excited about, right? Because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is that you actually have more control than you think you do.
Yeah, at least now I know where I can find the solutions from my problems. Okay, so basically, yeah, the diet has a huge impact on your mental health, but also I think sleep and sleep deprivation. Like I saw it with my own eyes, especially how sleep deprivation affects people with some mental problems. Because my ex, like every time when he didn't have enough sleep, because I have been having sleep problems my entire life because I'm hyperactive, right? And the next day he would have like anxiety attacks, panic attacks, even though he was on this like heavy cocktail of medication. So is it true that every time when we are sleep deprived and we haven't slept enough, everything feels and seems a way worse than it is.
Yes. So I mentioned the circadian rhythm. You can, google.com that if you're unfamiliar with it. But one way to think of it is that every hour of the day, every hour, including when you're sleeping, something is being repaired in your body. A different organ is being repaired. And they all have their time. They're like on a shift. At this time, this happens. At this time, this happens. And this has been going on since the minute that you were born. Whatever your birthday is, Kate. Like the day, the day you were born, your body started on this clock and it said, this is the time I'm doing this. For instance, between 12 and 2 in the morning or in the night when you're sleeping, your liver's repairing. Right? So if you're not sleeping during this time or you're having this regular, your body's not repairing like it needs to. So you're going to wake up feeling like it didn't really do the thing that you were supposed to be doing on the inside, right? And your body's going to be on high alert because it wants that. It wants to sleep. It wants to repair. It wants the nutrition. It wants the water. It wants the yoga. It wants these things. And when you don't give it those things, it fights you. It becomes your enemy and it will tell you, hey, we're not happy. And it's going to look at the world like it's also attacking that, right? You're going to feel like the world's coming at you kind of like an enemy because like you don't have that layer of protection. You don't have that groundedness. You don't have all the things your body needs to be its optimal self, right?
So sleep is devastating for our mental health.
Sleep is
sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation.
Yeah. Sleep is so important, and I think we all know that. We also don't want to sleep too much. Sleeping too much is also not good.
So how many hours is optimal?
Yeah, optimal depending on your age. So the age that we are, 7 to 8 hours is plenty. Unless you are sick. Like if you have the flu, obviously you need more sleep because you're fighting.
You're going to sleep for days.
For sure, right? But on a regular day like today, like when things are hopefully normal, like 7 to 8 hours is plenty.
Okay, all right. So we'll keep track of that because I've been having the sleeping problems my entire life, but I never made like a big deal of it. Like if I can sleep, I'll just do something else and then I just go back to sleep when I feel like it. But I usually wake up super early with the sun rays. Anyways,
there are some people that can thrive off 5 or 6 hours of sleep, and it sounds like you might be one of those people. And that's, like I said, we're not all the same, right? But not sleeping at all is not a recipe for greatness.
Yeah, that's how homeless people ended up on the street, right? So, all right, and now last question. After all of this knowledge that we have received from Kalina today, can you summarize? If you need to come down in 10 minutes, let's say you have an important event, what would you do?
It's a great question. If I have something that's of great importance and I need just to settle, I find a quiet space. Quiet's important so that you can just check in with yourself. When there's a lot of sound and things moving around, it's hard to really check in and check in with yourself. So just stepping away from whatever it is, taking a moment, taking a few of those deep breaths, feeling the belly feel like a balloon. And some people even find it helpful to remind themselves of their why. What I mean by that is why. Why is this important to you, this big event? Right? It's important to me because I want to help people. This podcast is important to me because I think this information is valuable, right? And when we can remind ourselves why we're doing the thing that we're doing, it will get us it'll allow for us to feel more grounded and excited about what we're showing up for instead of nervous by it, right? And it's also important to remember that nerves are also healthy, right? That's how we know we care about something, right? So giving yourself permission to feel what you're feeling is the first step towards not feeling that way anymore.
Wonderful. Kalina, thank you so much for everything that you have shared with us today. And last but not the least, I just want to say that yesterday is gone and tomorrow has not yet come. We have today, and there will be no stressful crisis next week. Your schedule is already full if you follow these advices that Kalina gave us today. Kalina, please tell us how to get in touch with you, what classes our viewers can attend, and whatever else you have to say as we finish our podcast. And thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be able to share and be of service. If you're interested in taking class, you can find my schedule at bohemiayoga.com, bohemiayogala.com more specifically. Yeah. I'm also on social media, probably like the rest of you. If you can follow me there, it's Kalina Yoga. At Kalina Yoga. And on my Instagram page, you can find my own personal website and ways to contact me if you are interested in learning more, or you want to come try yoga, or I don't know, you want to ask a question. My email's there, and I like getting surprise emails and questions. So however I can be of service.
Thank you, Kalina, for your service, for your knowledge, for your beautiful practice. And I recommend everyone who is watching this right now, if you are interested, that's the person who can guide you through spiritual yoga journey. Thank you so much for being here. We wish you a warm holiday season, and I will leave all the links for Kalina's Instagram, Bohemia Yoga, in the description of this video. Please, in 2024, take a good care of yourself, and it's gonna be your year. And I'll see you again in bed with Kate.